Okay. So, Dave, I got to watch Suburban Sasquatch yesterday, and I had such a good time with it. I love these type of movies where it's horror and comedy mixed combined, and the fact that it was shot on video, it was just a mind-blowing trip for me, and I really enjoyed this movie.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear that. I appreciate that.
So, how did you come up with this idea so many moons ago?
It's actually relatively straightforward. It was back in 2002. I was writing Fungicide, and we were shooting it. And as I'm shooting it, I'm thinking, well, maybe 30 people are going to see this, but it's testing the limits of what I could do. And I figured, given budgetary and time constraints, what would I do for my next few films? And I thought, all right, well, if I was going to do one more film, it's going to be Bigfoot. And if I have the time and money after that, it'll be zombies, because those are near and dear to me. I love creature movies. I love B movies. I'm a huge fan of movies from the 70s and 60s and 50s. Obviously we're talking 2000, right? And all this advent of shot to video coming out in the late 80s and 90s, it just really served as an encouragement. But Bigfoot was near and dear to my heart. So I thought, let me write something that's like really cool that we've never seen before. Now, granted, this is in 2003 and 2, so the marketplace was very minimal when it had Bigfoot films, especially anything where Bigfoot was an antagonist, an aggressor. Right. So I thought, what would it be like if I wrote something like that, but maybe like operatic on the level of Dune or Star Wars, where it was compelling, there was like more than one story. So I wrote 3 scripts, 3 stories essentially, knowing that if I ever came back to a sequel, I don't want to try and mine, for what I had as an intention. I thought I'll always have the groundwork here. And then it just came about. People saw Fungicide. I got actors and actresses lined up. People wanted to come to be part of the fray. And next thing you know, it becomes a reality.
That's amazing. And I got to say, the cast was pretty good in this. And I like the different types of characters that were involved. You got your park rangers, you got your one guy, the one protagonist, and then you have the warrior in Talia. She was great in this movie. What was it like meshing these like different characters in there as like supposedly the heroes who have to try to stop this Bigfoot, and of course they each have a different agenda of sorts, but what was it like meshing all that together?
I'm a huge fan of character-driven media where you're compelled to find how the intersection of characters and their desires and their challenges produce mini stories. So to me, simply having a story where Bigfoot was attacking people at a hotel or something in the woods, which is what we've seen a lot of at that time, I felt like, well, it's been done before. What am I going to do that's different? And I thought, if I really wanted a compelling story, I'd have to bring someone in who has the view of the heritage of the character, right? So the Native American lore and the historic perspective, and then try and bring in the environmental concerns and impact, which is where we have a reporter that would bring the story in, and that people that are caught in the crossfire. And then obviously it's going to bring in park rangers or police, because there's going to have to be some type of authority that gets crushed under as well. And I thought, what an interesting interplay between these characters. And of course, the more characters you bring in here, thinking from a horror perspective, well, there's more characters to kill, right? Like,
exactly.
Going to have more victims. Because I didn't want a movie where he's going to have 1 or 2 victims. I want to have lots of variety and interest, because, the B movie viewer in me wants to have that action that brought in there. So the challenge is who do you get to represent these characters? How can they bring them to life? And then what can you do that makes them compelling to an audience, right? How's the audience going to relate to each of these? What do they see as interesting and relate to them as a personal experience as well? And then you just have fun as they interplay. Like, they have their own desires and their limitations. And you as an audience member can sit there and root or hate against each one of them and say, oh my gosh, look at this housewife. Like, I could literally see that happening, like them running out of a house scared because of Bigfoot attacking.
I said, like you mentioned, so many characters to kill. This movie had some funny kills as well. I mean, had some great. The one that made me laugh the most is when he takes the fisherman's arm off, and the other guy's yelling for Dave, and the Bigfoot throws the arm at the guy and smacks him so hard in the chest he falls in the water. I was literally like driven in tears, laughing so hard seeing that. I was like, I had to rewind it just to see it again, and that had to be the funniest kill of the movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I also love the hunting massacre scene where all the hunters get like killed in various ways by the Bigfoot. That was almost like, it reminded me of The Burning, where Cropsy kills a bunch of kids on a raft, like with all the different, with his shears, he's just chomping away at like 5. It reminded me of that scene. It's like, we rarely get that anymore. Even though we recently just had it in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one, where he kills everyone on a bus.
I know, yeah, like they're all trapped. So the remake of the TCM, I won't comment on it, specifically. I know they were going for something specific there, but from the perspective, there's two kills you mentioned. Some interesting backstories on them. Number one, when I wrote it, I knew I had to have a big scene, right? And that's the biggest I could do at the time with the cast and the time frame you have. There's the one challenge being an indie filmmaker with limited resources. Like, you're doing so much at any moment, and when you look back and you say, man, it would have been better if I had more people, or what. It's so difficult just to get what you get done, right? It's not like you purposely limit yourself. It's like, this is exhaustion and sweat to get this done. Boy, if I could do it again, I would do something bigger and better. So that was something I really wanted to build up in there. So the original script had a lot more people in it, but you're limited.
Yeah.
So to be able to have it come out as good as it did feels great. When you're done shooting, when we had him floating down the river, it's starting to rain. That wasn't in the script. We had the boat, we got chased off the land. And when you're looking at the dailies, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. What happens is you hope in editing, it comes together. But the magic is that some point later, the intention was never to make anybody freak out and be afraid and be like, oh my God. The intention is just to say, does the audience buy it enough? And to look back after all this time to see people are enjoying it and they're laughing over it. And it's gotten its own place. It's gotten its own life to it. And that's magical.
Yeah, and I especially love the fact that the Sasquatch gets to bitch slap a few people in this movie. Like, like out of nowhere, you'll just see him like grabbing a smack. I just thought that was funny too, because I always thought you always see a monster when he does the slap, they'll get cut or maybe they get decapitated, but in this case, no, he just like slaps them. And I think especially
believe me, if I had more people, more time, there would have been like more, I won't say comical or zany kills, but anything that really ups it in a sense of like what's the dramatic sense. But when you're filming it, like a lot of stuff was like, okay, let's see what happens with this. And I was trying to get a lot of footage because when you edit, you end up throwing a lot of stuff away, right?
Yeah.
And I knew at that fight scene, I'm like, man, I got to really amp it up. So you kind of throw it in there. Plus, I have to be honest, when I shot this and edited, I'm thinking, I don't think this is going to get a deal. But when the film actually got done and I premiered it, Fungicide just gotten its first deal and companies were expressing interest. So you're like, man, I wish I could go back and reshoot and redo things. But, I always wanted to be on to the next thing anyway. So something I didn't want to go back to, but I figured the sequels will take care of that thing. But yeah, it's great to be able to do stuff like that. I've seen so many of these B movies where, like you said, like they cut or even they try and extend it. And I'd always sit back there. My mind is blown. I'm like, whoa, that looks so cool. Love to do that. And now you get a chance to do it yourself. You're like, well, what's the next thing I can do? Like, how can I make this even better next time?
Exactly, and the fact that we're getting a re-release here with Visual Vengeance, these guys are rock stars, and they just been out for like not even a month, and they're bringing all this all shot on video glory now to us, and I feel like I'm going back to nostalgia when I used to go to video stores and see these type of movies, and on the shelves, and I didn't have a chance to see them now. Now we're getting the chance to see them thanks to this new label, and I think they're doing a tremendous job.
They have done an amazing job. They've bent over backwards. They've been amazing to work with. Wild Eye Releasing, my agent, all have been wonderful in helping this come to fruition. Just been absolutely helpful trying to get this, up-res to Blu-ray, which current technologies are allowing a lot more capabilities than I had in 2004. But to your point, right? So let's call out a few things. First of all, their release is so robust. I mean, it's just been impressed me and wowed me. The team has been phenomenal in helping me and being patient and getting things done. But also in the artwork, I have to call out the artistry they've done for this is just way impressive. To exactly what your point, like I would go in the 90s with my friends and my wife, and we'd look through all the films and whatever captivated us from a cover, it would just draw us in. And whether the film was good or not, you got to look at the artwork, the time it takes to put these together, and we'd always be appreciative. Even if the film would be silly or miss the mark, we would gain something from it. And when I saw what they did with the artwork, I'm like, man, hats off to you. This is brilliant. I mean, you've encapsulated everything the film wants to portray and wants to be, and it's motivated you. And you're right. If I saw that in the shelf, I'd buy it. And in fact, as the filmmakers I'm buying so many of these copies, not just as gifts, but as keepsakes, because it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing they've done. It's just phenomenal.
That's awesome. So back to the movie. How long did it take to shoot the movie? And we know you had the budget constraints. what were there any other issues that you realize, like during production, you realized that, oh my God, was this happening actually? Like, what?
Yeah, you like, I would say that the time to write it. So I started in October of 2022 writing. I got done writing in, let's say, May of 20. I'm sorry, that was 2002. October, I started writing it. It got done, script completion to first cast in May of 2003 and started shooting in mid 2003. So the budget, I don't set it as a budget from a limit perspective. I'll say, well, what do I think I could shoot this for? And I think Suburban Sasquatch, right? So I was probably around $250 as a budget limit. And the reason that is because I feel like if I can make these as cheap as possible, that really adds a lot to the interest and the fun of it, right? So it was scraping together a lot of materials, having the costume design and the materials for that, and then the cast and whatnot. Literally, I think the cast, the final cast party, wrap party, was like $400, so that cost more than the movie itself. But you look at things from the perspective of not like what's it going to cost me to complete this. You think, well, if I can reduce it in some way, what would I do? Or if people were understanding the guys that were coming from in terms of the budget, what can you do to restrict or change your performance? But all said and done, it's literally about 2.5 years to complete from when you first get the concept and you start writing the treatments, to start with the story and then go to the script. So you really have to have a vested interest, because it's not just when you get it done. Then you have, at the time you were mastering, I was mastering for VHS and then DVD, which is ultimately coming out. So that was a lot of effort, and you didn't have the tools and the technology then like you do today, right? So
right.
Your capabilities do go up today, but you are still limited in what you can do in terms of time, right? It still takes someone's time and talent to put it together. So a lot of times when you see someone cutting the corners, you think, how can they miss that? Literally, it's because maybe we have 4 shots slotted a day and people are giving their time and it's hot out and you have limited money for dinners and food, because you don't, everything gets limited, and you have to be able to do what you can in those time frames. But you have to be vested in the idea, right? So Bigfoot was always near and dear to my heart. I was never going to drop or abandon the idea. Once I started shooting, that film was going to get done, even if I had to put a wig on and dress up as like Tala.
Yeah, that's awesome. But and it seems like from the get-go, like from the whole thing, you totally had fun making the film. It looks like, for sure.
Yeah, that was rule number 2 for the cast and crew. Everybody said, look, number 1, I can't guarantee you what's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to do anything except see the light of day and you get a copy yourself, or maybe it gets reviewed in a magazine, or maybe it goes nowhere. I can't guarantee it, but I will do my best. And the second thing is act professional on set, and with respect, because some people are trying to make this as a living or as a career and they want this credentials. Yeah. But have fun and be respectful. If you ruin a shot because you're laughing, I'm not going to yell at you. I ruin half the takes because I'm laughing or snickering, right? But you want to be able to help people have a good time, because they're going to try their best. No one's going to come on set and be lazy and not care. And people aren't going to try and purposely ruin things. They're really, really trying. And if you laugh or you make a mistake, I want people to laugh with you. We all make mistakes, right? You want to be able to enjoy your life and be able to make the best of what you can. I just felt I wanted a good, calm, happy, and fun set as best we could.
Exactly. And you remind me of another director who did the exact same thing, and he has new movies, recent movies. A director named Paul Dale. He does his films out of Louisiana. He had one out just a couple months ago called Sewer Gators, and it's just like this. He totally like no budget. He just had fun with it. He knew what he knew what the intention was, and he just rolled with it. And he enjoys, and like he enjoys making these movies, and he also loved watching the creature features and all that. So to watch Suburban Sasquatch was just like remind me of watching Sewer Gators just a couple months ago. It's like there's a fun horror comedy. Everyone looks like they were had a great time making it. It doesn't matter the budget. It just looked great, just for what you have. And it was overall, like I said, it's a fun movie, and so is Suburban Sasquatch.
Thank you. Yeah, you watch, like I would watch films and I would analyze and I'd try and peel back the curtain. I think, how did they shoot that? And partially that was trying to think about when I was going to make a movie, right? Like, how would I go about making some of these effects? What's the practical aspect? And when you realize that so many people are involved, from the music, sound effects, the real world effects, CGI, acting, like there's so much. Nobody's purposely trying to make a bad film. Like nobody's on there being lazy and not caring. And with that in mind, you're realizing that there's so much beauty and artistry that goes into it. Even if it fails, it has an artistry. I'm very much about the subjectiveness of art and what it brings to light. Like, for example, a review I was listening to of Tartarus was commenting on Juan Fernandez's work in the film, and how the film had so many different layers and adaptations. And I was like, boy, this is a wonderful way that you can take something that was written maybe with one intent, but you see another perspective. And as the creator, I can't say they're wrong. I could say it's beautiful that we can see something and it either reflects ourselves or the world that we perceive around us. And that's very much a joy about what's been able to come out here. I mean, nobody intentionally tried to ruin or underplay or not do a good job. We would say, what's the best we could do with what we have, you know? And it's wonderful that you have this amount of talent that grows out of it and becomes something more, and it really encourages people. And now look, we've got legs on it. We've got so many people reviewing it. Someone had said to me once in an interview, they're like, doesn't it offend you that people make fun of this or they laugh at it? And I'd say, absolutely not. The film was made to entertain. Whether you laugh at it or not is immaterial. I laugh at films that are supposed to be serious or they try and do a good job, not because I think that they did a terrible job, because I'm enjoying it on some level. And I'm enjoying and respecting everything that went into it. And the fact that you're laughing at the bad script while you're ignoring the lighting, the sound effects, the music, everything else that the cinematography, everything else that's going on in the background that didn't fail. So I feel like if 1 out of 20 pieces in that shot fails, I'm not doing so bad.
Yeah, like I said, how do you die getting hit with an arm into the chest and into the leg, like, for one, and the CGI effects, like nowadays, now we're back to using more practical effects for horror flicks, but of course back then in 2004, everyone was using more CGI at the time, so that's totally understandable. You went with the times, but and then but still, for what it's worth, the CGI effects were actually pretty good. I've seen worse in other movies. Let's put it that way. But they were actually pretty decent here.
Yeah, like you said, for the time, and I think one thing I have to level set with people is you look at it and you're like, oh, like that spurting blood looks so fake and bad. To me, I didn't have to hire anybody for $50 or $100 to make that. I did it myself, and it was passable in my eyes, at least to get the shot done. And would I have preferred to go outside and get like a balloon and squish on it? And yeah, but I didn't have 4 hours to do that, given everything else I had to do to get the film done. So you have to trade off between what you can do and what you can get by with. And I was always proud of what I could do CGI, but I knew it wasn't going to do anything except continue the already ridiculous disbelief that you had to watch the film in the first place. And if anything, you'd watch it and you'd say that was a CGI Bigfoot running by the camera, and it was so bad, but it didn't completely take me out of the film, or it enhanced my enjoyment of the film to some degree.
Oh, for me, it enhances, especially when you have a CGI log the Bigfoot was grabbing, and when Tully throws the axes, and you could tell the CGI was like, oh, it goes sliding off of it at one point. I was laughing so hard that it just made the movie better, in my opinion.
That's awesome. That's fabulous. And the great thing too is when I'm making it, and Dave Weldon, I had him come over, so he and Mary, as Mary is the co-producer, they're watching this. I'm like, see, look, this is where you pick the log up, and they're looking, they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm like, well, hell, if they think it's pretty cool, it must be fine.
So you worked on a few more films after Suburban Sasquatch. So what are you up to nowadays?
So I've done 7, and I took a break in 2012 with the intention of returning. So I'd always write scripts. So I've got maybe 5 scripts written outside of Suburban Sasquatch 2 and 3. And I actually have all the equipment I need. I bought all this HD stuff, built a new rig for re-editing, which actually has helped me redo Fungicide and Suburban Sasquatch for the Blu-ray releases. So I've got the equipment ready, but honestly, the pandemic put a pause on all the filming.
Yeah.
And then now I've had to hold off working with other filmmakers to get anything done, because I'm just trying to get the time together, because parenting, full-time jobs, all those things take a lot of effort.
I know all that. I may be doing this, but I got a day job and I'm a parent too. I totally get it.
So yeah. Yes. So and honestly, I was thinking, so Dave Sitbon, who's worked with me in a lot of films, and he'll be back in some of the other films. So I said to him, he's like, Dave, come on, let's get going on some of these films. I said, Dave, look, I got Fungicide 2 written, and Suburban Sasquatch 2 written, but I don't want to be the sequel guy. I got other films. He's like, Dave, you haven't shot anything in 8 years, and you've already got so many other films. No one's going to think of you as a sequel guy. So the funny story is I wrote Fungicide 2, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot it this year. And then at the last minute, I got rid of the script, and someone was like, well, why'd you get rid of the script? I said, well, the script actually was looking pretty good. It had a coherent plot. And I'm like, Fungicide isn't about coherence. I had to chuck that and start over again. So that had to be dumbed down quite a bit. But yeah, like I'm thinking either Fungicide or Suburban Sasquatch will see their sequel start shooting either in the winter or spring of next year to be released. Who knows how long after that, right? Editing is new and faster now, so I won't make any promises. But they are set to go. But I also have a lot of other ideas I want to pursue. I just don't want to mention anything right now.
That's okay.
It's the love of doing it. Just need time.
As long as I hear there's going to be a Suburban Sasquatch sequel, I'm all in. I'm definitely would be in for that. That's for sure.
Oh, that's fabulous. And you know what? I have so many people as lined up for cast that want to be in it. They just don't even do cameos. Like, I just want to be a victim or something. So I'm always encouraging people, let me know, because if it lines up timing-wise, location-wise, and you're willing to, be a part of it, I'll do everything I can to get you in.
I hope people hear this, because if you all heard this and you're aspiring to be an actor, this might be a good start for you guys. That's all I'm going to say.
Or it could be a big stop sign, like, hold on here.
Yeah, exactly.
My career started and ended when Suburban Sasquatch 2, right?
So the film is coming out August 9th on Special Edition Blu-ray from Visual Vengeance, Wildlife Releasing's new label. These guys are rock stars, hands down. And I mean, if you guys see the artwork, it will want you to get the movie either way. And Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about the film. And it was such a blast. And I hope we do get a sequel eventually. Because this one was off the chain, and I can't wait to see the return of the Sasquatch killing more people. Maybe you'll get to kill more in one scene this time around.
Oh yeah. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say I've got some really rocking scenes for the next two. Well, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. Great job interviewing. Reach out if you have any questions or need anything. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Everyone, you take care. Have a great day.